All three Labour leadership candidates embrace hard-left Corbynism, Emily Thornberry is out of the race, and Nigel Farage praises Boris Johnson on Brexit. Right, you all remember the Labour Party. They used to be a credible opposition party in the country, and now they're a joke. We're going to talk about all the three candidates who are left in the race. The reason it matters, because some people say, why do we even talk about Labour? It's because technically they are still the second largest party, and they are the biggest risk we have to the Brexit, post-Brexit Britain, and everything else that we have in this country. Now, we're going to go through each three of them because until now we were told that there are three different candidates. You got hard left, you got moderate, you got lawyer, and but we're going to talk about each three of them because all three have decided to embrace the legacy of Jeremy Corbyn. Now, let's go through a quick journey. 2010, we had an election where we had Gordon Brown, David Cameron, and Nick Clegg standing for the three main parties. Labour lost. And what did they do? They came out and said, it's because we weren't left-wing enough. So they decided to pick Ed Miliband as their next leader. 2015, Labour lost. They said, it's because we weren't left-wing enough. So they decided to pick Jeremy Corbyn. 2017 and 2019, Labour lost. Labour said, we weren't left-wing enough. So now they're going with these three candidates. So we're going to go through each one of them. First, Rebecca Long-Bailey. Now, we all know Rebecca. She's Jeremy Corbyn's pet project. And she has a lot of nicknames. We're not going to be that mean to her. But we are going to be mean to her policies. The latest crazy policy that she's come out with is to defend and support an independence referendum, or as we call it, an isolationist referendum for Scotland. Yes, Rebecca Long-Bailey is now one of the candidates who has said that she would grant the Scottish Parliament the legal powers to hold a second referendum on the Scottish independence. This was at a hustings where she said, as a socialist, I believe in collective solutions and I'm proud to be from the UK. But as a Democrat, if the Scottish Parliament makes the request for a referendum, I don't believe as a Democratic Party we could refuse that. Okay. They just had a referendum. Only a couple of years ago, back in 2014, they had a referendum. The Scottish people already said no. And there are a number of issues with this because people who are not from Scotland or are familiar with Scottish politics, they just look at the SNP and think the SNP is Scotland. No, the SNP is not Scotland. There are a lot of people in Scotland who still want to be a proud unionists and part of the United Kingdom, not just for the sake of nostalgia and the whole family of the union, but it makes sense economically, socially, on every level. It makes sense. There's absolutely no problem with, obviously, decentralising powers, so Scotland could have more power, but by Scotland we don't mean the SNP Parliament. We want the actual Scottish people to have more power over their own lives. But right now the SNP, with the way we did devolution in Scotland, obviously now we have to kind of live with the consequences because the SNP with their parliament are causing chaos. They don't really look after their own people. All they want to do is basically make Scotland so bad so that they could blame Westminster for everything and then get their independence and then get back into the queue to join the European Union. Leave a union to join another union. So that's Rebecca Long-Bailey, and we know that generally speaking she's a hardcore socialist Marxist and following. Basically she just listens to what Jeremy Corbyn says. Next, we are going to go through Keir Starmer and Lisa Nandy, but before we continue, Emily Thornberry, one of our favourite Remainers, Champagne Socialist Remainers, is now out of the race because she couldn't get enough support from the Labour members, unfortunately. Poor Emily. But there are two clips that we have from Emily Thornberry recently. We're going to go through each one of them because the hypocrisy and the irony of what she says every single time is hilarious. First, this is a comment she made about Boris Johnson being a clown.
To decide.
You've made quite a lot of the fact that you've gone head-to-head with Boris Johnson in the way the other candidates haven't. I'm really intrigued to know what it is you think that you do at the dispatch box that you think was so good at holding him to account.
So I think the thing is, so he's a clown. All right? That's new business.
If you could just keep quiet for a minute. Oh. He's a clown, and he's a liar, and he's superficial, and
you think you're at the dispatch box now, don't you?
And I'm just saying, right? Is that in order to take on someone like that, you don't be a clown, but you have to be light on your feet. You have to be able to be on top of the detail, and you have to have a kind of a personality as well.
I mean, fine, you could criticise, politicians, unconventional politicians like Boris Johnson or Donald Trump, to not be, your typical polished politician. Although Boris Johnson has improved massively in the last few months, he's actually quite boring now. But she's sitting there, talking and behaving like a clown, calling someone else a clown. Really? It's not like she's a serious statesman, kind of like politician herself. She also said something about Theresa May, not one of my favourite politicians, but she made a comment about Theresa May looking dreadful.
Do you feel sorry for Theresa May?
Sometimes I do.
I mean, is she being held... Why do you feel sorry for her?
Sometimes I do.
Why do you feel sorry for her?
Well, I just look at her and just think she looks dreadful.
Wait, let's watch that last bit again.
Well, I just look at her and just think she looks dreadful. She looks dreadful.
So she said Theresa May looks dreadful while looking dreadful herself. She genuinely looks hungover every time she's on TV, and tired and destroyed, and she's now obviously attacking Theresa May. But enough about Emily, because she was the future once, not anymore. Keir Starmer is your North London Sir Keir Starmer, ex-lawyer, the architect behind the Labour Party's second referendum policy and pro-Remain. He's very anti-Brexit, and but he said that apart from that, he's a moderate. He wants to be, in the centre, whatever the centre is. And until now, his policies are coming out. They're bonkers. So in the name of European social democracy, again, whatever that is, it's just basically socialism in different ways. He's introduced his new policies. Public services should be in public hands and not making profits for shareholders. Support common ownership of rail, mail, energy and water, and everything that you can think of. So that's one thing. Some people, again, are sympathetic towards nationalising stuff, but again, because they think you are giving it to the public. No, the people will have no power, no say over how these industries will be run, because they'll just steal people's money, and they'll get the bureaucrats and the establishment to run this. You think this is bad? Keir Starmer is also promising to keep Jeremy Corbyn's tuition fee stance. This is another bonkers idea that Keir Starmer has. He has now promised to maintain the commitment to abolish tuition fees, and also when it comes to the student debt. Again, it's a left-wing populist idea. Some people who don't know how these policies work think, oh, it's probably a good idea. Yeah, this current system is so unfair. But in reality, who's going to be paying for this, and what are the consequences after this? Other policies include scrapping universal credit, an income tax increase for the top 5% of earners, which again, we've already discovered from the last Labour manifesto, it's not really just 5%, it's everybody. Ending outsourcing in the NHS and justice system, and putting the Green New Deal at the heart of all Labour policies. Yay! Yeah, we've all been waiting for this Green New Deal stuff to come out of these candidates. I was quite surprised that none of them, apart from obviously a bit of kind of Rebecca Long-Bailey, haven't been mentioning it until now. It's all coming out now. Green New Deal is coming to London. So that's Keir Starmer, the guy who said he's not going to be like Corbyn, he's not even going to be like Tony Blair. But in reality, he's a sort of politician that looks like Tony Blair, boring, and with the policies of Jeremy Corbyn, crazy. So that's Keir Starmer. So don't have faith in him thinking, he could actually change Labour and make it, a great party again. No, Labour's gone. Just give up. Labour's gone. And next is Lisa Nandy. So Lisa Nandy, she's northern. She likes small towns and buses. I know. And she is portraying herself as the moderate, essentially. She's still anti-Brexit. She still voted against Brexit even recently. And there's more to this, because the policies that she's coming up with, like the other crazy left-wing candidates, are slightly damaging. One of them is about the monarchy. Yes, Lisa Nandy has now said that she would vote to abolish the monarchy in any future referendum on the royal family. I mean, firstly, there has to be some sort of referendum if she wants to vote against this. And I'm guessing that in a future Labour government, the next time Labour gets into power, whether it's having a coalition with the Greens and the SNP or just Labour majority, they are going to do a couple of things. One is introducing a referendum on the monarchy, but also bringing down the voting age and probably, I don't know, doing everything that they can to destroy this country. Now, the problem with this whole monarchy stuff is that not everybody is pro-royal family. Some people love the royal family, but it's all irrelevant. I've said this many times. You don't have to like or hate the royal family because the monarchy, the constitutional monarchy as a system, has nothing to do with the family. It has nothing to do with the Queen herself either. The Queen or the King are the protectors of the crown. The crown is what that matters really. And the reason it matters is because we don't have an American republic system. And the way we do checks and balances is by having the monarch, the crown, to make sure that, Parliament or the Prime Minister doesn't start something crazy and basically become dictatorial, and vice versa. The Queen or the King also have limited powers. Parliament could always block them. So this country will never turn into a crazy country because we have checks and balances. And if you want to get rid of this, then you're going to have to come up with a new idea. The other problem with getting rid of this is if you want to have an elected head of state, which people think, oh, it's good because that means people are in power, people are in charge of the leader. No, because the head of state will be political, will be party political. You're going to have to vote for either Labour or Tory or Lib Dem or something. And the moment the head of state becomes party political, everything will change. Look at France, look at other countries. It could work in certain places. If I were to create a new country from scratch right now, I wouldn't start a monarchy. It makes absolutely no sense. But for the British culture and the British system, the current system works until you guys come up with a new system. But if you want to go back to the traditional version of republic with a president, again, I know that some people are sympathetic towards this. It's a bad idea because right now the Queen is above party politics, and we don't want to have that. I am worried about Charles becoming king, but that's a different argument. This is exactly why, when you look at the latest polls, Labour are doing even worse than before. They are now on 32% and the Tories are on 47%. And this is the Tories that recently had some ups and downs and bumps in the road with some weird policies until they got rid of Sajid Javid. And somehow the Conservatives are still leading by a mile. So we still have a few weeks left to go to find out who is going to be the next Labour leader. But when it comes to Brexit and post-Brexit Britain, obviously we have the trade talks going on, and the European Union with the level playing field and demands been causing some chaotic kind of noises in Brussels. But at the same time, they did surrender to the original strategy when they said that the UK can't have their cake and eat it. We're not going to give them a trade deal without alignment. They've already decided to make a U-turn and say that we will give Britain a tailor-made deal, which hopefully, again, they still have demands anyway, but as long as Boris Johnson stands firm against any political alignment and ECJ having oversight, should be fine. And Nigel Farage actually supports this idea. Yes, Nigel Farage tweeted saying that this was obviously David Frost, the chief negotiator, made a speech in Brussels and outlined the UK's position on the trade talks. And Nigel Farage said, great speech by David Frost in Brussels. The UK government is sticking to the promises. So at least some stuff is going well, and Brexiteers are finally uniting after the last few years of division, everybody attacking everybody. So this is good. Again, as long as Nigel said, if the government stick to their promises and with what David Frost said in Brussels, that kind of outlining the actual position to make sure that we are going to say no to everything that they're going to say to be tied, whether it's the fisheries, whether it's finances, taxation regulation, or just political alignment with the European Court of Justice, and specifically Defence Union. Because the UK government, before we left the EU, made some commitments to the Defence Union, but as long as that Defence Union is not linked to Brussels, this is a whole different kind of discussion. If they're going to start some sort of NATO-style structure, there needs to be a debate about this in public. We are going to be covering this in the next few months as we find out more publicly about the reports that are going to be published. Right now, everything's behind closed doors, so we don't know much. But so far, so good. In general, we have a lot to cover in the next few days. If you enjoy the content, you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe and click on the bell next to it so you get notified. We have a daily show at 5:45 p.m. And if you want to follow me on social media, listen to my daily rants about Brexit and current affairs, you can find my Twitter and Instagram details on the screen. I'm Tousi. I'll see you guys tomorrow with a new video.